Fight promotion is a cutthroat business. Companies come and go, but the UFC remains the most dominant MMA promotion. This video hopes to explain how the UFC earned their spot as the #1 MMA organization in the world and shed light on some of their most shady business practices. These are some of the biggest UFC controversies. Drug testing. Performance-enhancing drugs are a problem in every sport, but in MMA, it has become an epidemic.
The UFC and MMA in general is a steroid epidemic.
I know all the fighters, and they're all on steroids. All you motherfuckers are on steroids.
Fighters are testing positive left and right, which puts a black eye on the sport and the UFC. So much so that the UFC has even been caught trying to cover up drug tests. When Vitor Belfort was set to fight Jon Jones at UFC 152, the UFC had conducted their own private drug test on the fighters and found Belfort's testosterone to be 2.5 times the normal level of a man his age, and should have raised several red flags. But the fight wasn't canceled. Belfort was allowed to fight, and when the test results were leaked, the UFC sent threatening emails warning people not to disclose drug test results.
It was like a very stern warning for something they never asked for. That was just a cherry on top.
If I got that email, I might not have even looked at the thing before, but now I'm like, ooh, this must have something good in it because I just got this stern warning. I better go look at it.
A similar situation occurred when Anderson Silva tested positive for 2 different steroids before his fight with Nick Diaz. Silva was still allowed to fight, and the test results weren't released until the pay-per-view was over. The Nevada Athletic Commission was blamed for the delayed test results. This blunder saved the UFC millions of dollars.
Excellent.
Attendance tonight was 13,114. We did a gate of 4.5 million.
Interesting side note, UFC owner Lorenzo Fertitta used to work for the Nevada Athletic Commission, as well as current Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for the UFC, Mark Ratner.
PEDs have been cleaned up in the UFC.
Homophobia. Homophobia has always been common in society, but in the UFC, it's especially prevalent. Many fighters have made homophobic slurs such as Nate Diaz, Michael Bisping, Rampage Jackson, Donald Cerrone.
There's a silencer that makes it really quiet.
Sounds like a faggot farting.
Jon Jones, Matt Mitrione.
That's ridiculous. That is a lying, sick, sociopathic, disgusting freak, and I mean that.
Antonio Nogueira, commentator Joe Rogan,
I will bring wet death from the sky on you faggots.
and even UFC President Dana White.
Whoever gave you that quote is a pussy and a liar, you dumb bitch.
Dana White even made fun of female MMA fighter Chris Santos, accusing her of looking like a man.
When I saw her at the MMA Awards, she looked like Vanderlei Silva in a dress and heels. She got up and she was like, walking up the stairs.
Class action lawsuit. The Federal Trade Commission's Bureau of Competition opened an antitrust investigation on Zuffa, the parent company of the UFC, after the purchase of Strikeforce in 2011.
But was part of it to eliminate the competition? They were number 2, right?
We're a little aggressive. I would agree with that.
Now, in 2015, the investigation is active once again after a lawsuit was filed against the UFC. The class action lawsuit filed by former UFC fighters such as Kung Lee, John Fitch, and Nate Quarry alleges the UFC tried to create a monopoly by buying out rival promotions.
The UFC has taken over the entire industry.
The UFC denies they tried to create a monopoly even after purchasing Pride, the WEC, the IFL, WFA, Affliction, Elite XC, and other promotions, and claim they are pro-competition.
I am not a destroyer of companies. I am a liberator of them.
UFC lost a motion to dismiss the lawsuit in September, and the case is currently pending. Sponsorship. 6 years ago, businesses would pay a fighter to wear their logo during a fight. But after seeing how much money the fighters were making, the UFC instituted a sponsor tax. So if a company wanted to sponsor a UFC fighter for $5,000, it would first have to pay the UFC $100,000.
Money, money, money.
But after securing a deal with Reebok, the UFC banned all outside sponsors, forcing the fighters to accept a small flat payment to wear the new Reebok uniforms.
When I'd sit here and lie to you if I said, oh yeah, it's great for us. It's not. I'm going to make less money off sponsors.
If I say something, I'm going to get my ass kicked.
I'm pretty disappointed by it.
I mean, yeah, it's good. You get something.
I just don't know how the deal could be any better.
Many fighters were upset over the loss of income from the new Reebok deal, like UFC heavyweight Brendan Schaub, who claimed to have lost $100,000 per fight in sponsorship money.
I make twice as much money off sponsors than I do with the UFC pays.
And now they all go away because of the Reebok?
They all go away.
UFC President Dana White responded to the claim by going on television and publicly trashing Schaub's sponsors.
So, Brennan Schaub is claiming he makes over $100,000 a fight with sponsorship. These are some of his sponsors. Big Rentals Construction Company, KeepItPlayful.com. This is true. This is no joke. No Ho Hangover.
Because he said you were a liar about your sponsors. You have all the lists. I mean, you gave it to me. You gave me a list of all your sponsors and what you actually got paid.
Yeah,
you have it.
I have proof. I have tax returns. It's not about that.
Well, that's it. That settles the argument.
Longtime UFC cutman Jacob Stitch Duran recently spoke out against the Reebok deal and was immediately fired by the UFC.
Stitch Duran was never my friend.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
Media control. The media can be troublesome for any controversial company to deal with. Most businesses ignore requests for comment on a hot topic, but the UFC has a different way of dealing with reporters.
Do you have any thoughts about joining the lawsuit by Rob Macy?
He said you're a dick. Just translating for him. Sit down and shut up. Who has another question?
If you ask tough questions and only get berated by Dana White, you're lucky. Most reporters are blacklisted from all UFC events. Such was the case with MMA reporters Josh Gross and Jeff Sherwood, among others.
Typical fucking, douchebag reporter.
When female journalist Loretta Hunt questioned some of UFC's matchmaking decisions, Dana White went on this rant.
And if you're gonna put some quotes in there, get some quotes from people who at least have the balls to put their name on it. Whoever gave you that quote is a pussy and a liar, you fucking dumb bitch. You, Loretta Hunt.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe.